Hello everybody and welcome back to another not applicable Formula 1 video. I hope that you are well. The 2022 Formula 1 calendar has finally been dropped by the F1 teams and it's looking like it is going to be an absolutely amazing season. I know that everybody is pretty hyped for 2022 and finally we get to see the 23 races that are going to happen next year in 21 different countries. We're going to Italy twice, we're going to the USA twice, but apart from that, we're going pretty much everywhere across the globe. The actual Grand Prix start in March in Bahrain, and now I know that most people, including myself, sort of see Australia as the first race of the season. It's the way that it used to be. It's the way that, in my opinion, it should be. But I can get over the fact because Melbourne is back on the calendar. It is third race in. And then, of course, we are finishing up the season in Abu Dhabi. Again, you know, lots of people will say we should finish off in Brazil, but one more race after Brazil in Abu Dhabi as well. So March to November with our summer break in the middle there after the Budapest, Hungary Grand Prix. So the 13th race of the season, 13 races in the first half, 10 races in the second half of the season. Now, there are a few things still to be decided. Imola, Barcelona, Singapore, and Austin are still yet to sign their full contract, so they're still sort of hashing out the final little bits and pieces, but they are basically guaranteed for next year, and the weekends that they are on are basically guaranteed as well. And of course, the inaugural Miami Grand Prix, the first ever Miami Grand Prix, is going to be held in 2022, but they're still just waiting and checking over the circuit. There's lots of safety things to go over. They have to double check the track is sort of worthy of Formula 1 visiting and that it will be ready on time for that Grand Prix in May. But lots and lots to talk about in and amongst this calendar and lots of things I want to get your opinion on as well. I don't know about you guys, but I am super excited for 2022. Like, the new regulations coming in for the new season, closer racing is what we've been told to expect, and also it could mix up the grid completely. Like, the whole new system in place could be completely different next year. We've got teams that have spent so much of their time over the last couple of seasons dedicating themselves to 2022. You know, the likes of Williams and Haas come to mind straight away, where they've effectively sort of given up on the last couple of years. Specifically Haas this year have told F1 that they've effectively given up this year completely and have focused all of their efforts into 2022, and we're getting closer and closer to seeing what those cars will look like, what the teams will look like next year is almost guaranteed as well. So we're starting to get that hype towards 2022. I know there's still lots of 2021 to go. We've still got 6 races and an amazing title battle on our hands, but I don't know about you, but I just can't help but get a little bit excited for 2022. Let me know in the comments down below, are you excited for 2022? And also, on top of that, we've got Norris, we've got George Russell, we've got Max, we've got Leclerc, all coming to sort of that point in their career where they've been in Formula 1 long enough. Like, Max Verstappen could be a world champion by next year as well. But all 4 of those guys in 4 separate teams are all coming to that point in their careers where you're really starting to see it click, you know, especially this season with George Russell and Lando Norris. Like, those two have just been standout. We've got Carlos Sainz and Leclerc going tooth and nail with each other in Ferrari. And next year, it could get even closer still. Also, for me, I'm super, super excited to see Australia, Canada, and Singapore back on track. Like, they are 3 of my probably favorite races. I reckon, you know, Canada and Singapore in particular are probably in my top 5 Formula 1 tracks of all time. I just absolutely love Canada and Singapore. And there's lots of races we've missed out on in the last couple of seasons, which I'm really, really happy are going to be back on the Formula 1 calendar. So there is lots to look forward to in 2022, although I do have my concerns. There are a few little things that I'm just a little bit worried about moving into 2022. Mainly the fact that we've got 23 races. That is a lot of races to do in a very short period of time between March and November. Like, that is a very short period of time to get in 23 different races, as I said, across 21 different countries. The strain on the teams next season, especially with all the new regulations coming in as well, could be pretty massive. Like, in particular, those first 6 races really concern me. I mean, more sort of Saudi Arabia through to Spain really concerns me. And, you know, they're all going to be getting used to these new regulations. The new cars are coming in. We're going to see a completely different grid, possibly. You know, we're going to see lots and lots of change happen over these next 6 months before the next season starts. And yet, they've decided that those 5 races are going to go in this order. So we're going to go Saudi Arabia, all the way down to Australia, back on ourselves up to Italy, then all the way across to Miami, and then back again on ourselves to Barcelona. It seems like a very muddled up way of doing those first few races. Like, Formula One are pretty good at this usually. Usually they group, a lot of the European races together, a lot of the Asian races together. They try and group them together quite sensibly. I just feel like in those first 6 races, they've done the complete opposite of that. And Formula One teams have to fly all the way across the globe and back again. Like, they're effectively doing 2 laps of the globe here to get themselves all the way around these first 5 or 6 Grand Prix, which just seems a little bit strange to me. It feels like they could have done those races fairly differently. I kind of understand Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Australia being grouped together, but why is Italy in the middle of that? And it just doesn't quite make sense to me, those first 6 races. So I'd love to know, do you think this is like a good order of the races? Because give or take, they've got USA, Mexico, Brazil all in there with each other. Japan, you could argue, they're all in similar sort of places. There's a big stint in the middle in Europe, and I think that's going to be a massive saving grace for the drivers as well as the teams. Like, after Canada, where you've got that big stint of European races, let's face it, 80% of the grid is European, and all the teams pretty much are based in Europe. All the manufacturers are pretty much based in Europe. They are going to be thankful that that middle section of the season that also goes over the summer break is a lot of European races. And yes, I'd love to see Formula One races here, there, and everywhere across the globe. I'd love to see an African race. I'd love to see more South American races, because we do get different fans, and it gives people from across the globe this opportunity to see the teams and see the drivers that they absolutely love. But at the same time, there's got to be a balance here between, can we just, travel all the way across the globe all of the time, compared to, can we get the races in a good order that makes kind of logical sense? There's also another concern I have in the middle there. Hungary, Belgium, Netherlands being a triple header. We've seen this year that triple headers, even though it was France, Austria, even though they didn't even have to move between Austria and Austria, that triple header was horrible for the teams. Lots of drivers really struggling to get back home in between. Lots of drivers saying they didn't have time. I think it was Charles Leclerc in an interview recently with Carlos Sainz was saying how, neither of them were able to get any sort of simulator time in and amongst the triple header. Like, they are just on the ball every single day, basically. You have to get from one track to another track within 3 days. It's just mental to me that they've put in a triple header there. And then after that, they've put in another triple header. Russia, Singapore, Japan is also a triple header. There's 2 triple headers here. And it just seems like the silly thing to do, especially, I know there's a summer break, and I know they brought in the summer break to help the teams with this kind of thing, and obviously it gives them an opportunity to, revitalize and just, restore some energy in their batteries. But at the same time, 2 double headers straight after the summer break just puzzles me. Again, it seems a little bit strange. And, the argument is that, we need to have more races, and especially with other sports as well. The football has the exact same issue at the moment. There are games every 3 to 4 days, and there are now races almost every single weekend. Like, they are condensing the races down as much as they possibly can so that you have a Formula One race as quickly as the last one has just finished. But where is that limit for me? I think the limit could be 23 races. I cannot see how they could add another race anywhere in this calendar. It would just look chock-a-block. Already 23, I think, is pushing the boundaries a little bit. Like, look at those last 10 races from Belgium down to Abu Dhabi. They are within 13 weeks. 10 races in 13 weeks is going to be awful for those drivers and teams. Like, if we don't see the fatigue set in, I will be really, really surprised. It just boggles me that these teams and drivers have to be expected to perform at the absolute highest standard. I know that we're talking about, possibly the 20 best drivers on the planet and the best engineers and the best people in and amongst the Formula One paddock, but at the same time, there's got to be a limit to their talents. There's got to be a limit to just how much gas they have in the tank, and they're just being stretched thinner and thinner and thinner every year. And it just makes me wonder, when is that standard going to drop? When are we going to be disappointed by a Formula One race? Or by a few Formula One races, not because, the track was rubbish or the conditions weren't quite right, but more so that the teams just couldn't actually get it together, and teams, were having off weekends and off races. And especially with the budget cap coming in, these teams are probably going to get smaller. Like, the amounts of people in each garage is going to have to get smaller if they're going to get closer and closer to this budget cap, And more races stacked on top of that. The fact that, this budget cap is coming in, it's restricting the money they can spend, the parts they can have, but they've got to do more races. It just doesn't quite balance in my head. And I know that money talks, but when is it going to be that it affects the sport that we love so much? And I'd love to know your opinions down below. Do you think that 23 races is a bit too much? Like, I'm right on the edge of this. I think 23 might be just a little bit too much. Like, if we see some drivers by the time we get to Mexico, Brazil, Abu Dhabi with fatigue, not showing their base performance, we start to see little slip-ups, coming up in their game, I would not be massively surprised. But I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. As I said, I'm super excited for 2022, and I know that maybe this has been a little bit of a downer because I do have quite a few concerns about next year, just with the regulations coming in and the calendar being so stacked. But I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think is going to happen in 2022? Who do you think is going to win the Drivers' Championship in 2022? Because there is going to be a lot of drivers in contention for it before the season starts. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you next time.